class, welcome to lesson 4. We are going to be learning about styling text with CSS today. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to change the font family, the font size, use additional text properties, and use font style shorthand. Okay, so let's talk about fonts. What is a font? A font refers to the style of the letters on a page. Changing the font will change the way the letters look and can help you send a particular message or help with the overall formatting. Common examples of fonts are Times New Roman or Arial. Using CSS styling, you can change the font of the text on your web page to suit your needs. To change the font of the text on a web page, use the font family property in the CSS code. Once an identifier has been defined, add font family as the property inside curly brackets. So you have to use a dash in the middle. What follows after the colon will be a value to define the font. Fonts can generally be divided into two categories, serif and sans serif. A serif font is said to be made up of letters with feet. So Times New Roman is an example of a serif font. This makes the text look more complex, and it's typically a type of font that you would see in a textbook. Sans serif font, therefore, is a font with letters with no feet on them. Arial and Helvetica are common examples of sans serif fonts. Sans serif fonts are generally considered easier to read on computer screens. So most printed books are going to have serif, and most computer websites and stuff are going to have sans serif. You can define that a general serif or sans serif font be used on a web page by adding serif or sans serif as the following the font family properties, like we just did. When serif or sans serif is used on its own, a default font type will be used based on the computer of the user viewing the page. For serif, this is often Times New Roman, and for sans serif, this is usually Arial or Helvetica. This may change based on the model or the age of the computer or browser the user is employing. When more specificity is needed in the font choice, a specific font name can be used in the CSS. This will ensure that when possible, the user will be seeing the same font as you intended. Some commonly used font names are Times New Roman, Ditto, Georgia, Palatino, American Typewriter. Those are all serif. And then for sans serif, you have Arial, Helvetica, Verdana, Trebuchet, and Optima. A font name can be defined using its name in the font family attribute. So font family, Verdana, semicolon. You can also use one of the three following types: monospace, cursive, or fantasy. So those are types of fonts. Monospace fonts are designed to have the same amount of space between each letter, which helps maintain consistent spacing and positioning on a page. Cursive fonts are designed to mimic the look of handwriting, and fantasy fonts are fun and decorative. Because fonts are dependent on the web browser's font memory, if a font is not loaded on a computer, it cannot be shown. For example, if you styled text on your web page with Palatino, but the user's computer did not have Palatino preloaded, then the style rule would be ignored completely and no font would be used at all. It's always good to specify one or more backup fonts in case a user cannot access a particular font. To add a backup font, add a comma after a font name and then type another. So if you use a specific font like Palatino, your backup can be any serif font. So it's a good idea to have the comma and then serif as a backup. If you used Blippo as a specific font, then Fantasy is the type of font that is, and that can be your backup. Alright, let's talk about font size. So the size of a font can be changed using the font size property, font-size. The font size property is usually written immediately after the font family property within the same style rule for an element. Font size can be defined using one of many supported measurement units. So there's lots of different ways to define font size, just like there were lots of ways to define colors. So the pixel is one way you can define a font size, meaning each pixel on any given device is the same size. Many web pages measure 1024 pixels wide by 768 pixels high. To use a pixel measurement for your text size, type the number followed by px for pixel. So 12 pixels high for your font. You can also use a font scale called EM, and this is a relative unit length. So the EM unit does not define a specific length, but rather a proportional size. So if you use something like 2EM, it's relative depending on the device that is used. So if you change between a laptop or a phone, it will scale proportionately instead of always being 12 pixels high. It also allows you to define a proportional size for each element. EMs can be typed as a size unit following the font size property, so you just use the EM abbreviation after it. Okay, there's some other options within font styling. So you can use the font style property. That allows you to apply certain styles to a selection of text as a whole. Possible values for this property include normal, italic, and oblique. It is most useful when you want to apply italic style to an entire selection of text. The font weight property allows you to set the weight of the text you are styling. So this is if you want it to be bold or not as bold. The weight can be defined through the following values: normal, bold, bolder, and lighter. See, you can see the different options here. Font weight, normal. Font weight, bold. Font weight, bolder. So if you want to have bold text, you can use CSS to do that as well. You can change the height of a line of text using the line height property. This adjusts the amount of spacing between lines. A line height can be defined as a fixed height given in pixels, centimeters, etc. It can also be expressed as a percentage of the current font size using EMs or percentages. So line height, if you want your lines to be spaced out more, you can do more percentage. And then another option is the text align property. By using the text align property, you can change the alignment of the text in a particular section of the page. Text align values are the choice of left, right, justify, or center. So this is how you center something if you want to center the text. Okay, so let's talk about CSS shorthand for a minute. This is a shortcut way of writing CSS, and it's designed to reduce the amount of repetitive typing that you have to do. It works by combining multiple style declarations together under one single declaration. This allows a variety of style properties to be set by simply defining values in a specific order without having to name each property individually. For shorthand, there is a specific order of properties. The values must be entered according to this order. Font becomes the overall property name, with a sequence of values that follow to define the font properties. Values are separated by a space only. So this is the shortcut way to define all these things. So the first one is font style, so italic. The second one is font variant, so if you want all caps or small caps or just normal. Font weight is bold, And font size can be 16px / the line height is 1.5, and font family is the last one, Arial. So values must be put in this order for the shorthand to be effective. So all you do is you write font, colon, and then you can put all the values after that. So that's how it's considered a shorthand. You don't have to have a line for each one of those values. A font shorthand can be defined using all 6 values, but they do not all need to be used every time if they are not needed. The only font size and font family are mandatory. Therefore, body font 16px Arial would be a valid font shorthand. You can then add any of the other properties you like. If you wanted to add italic 16px Arial, you can do it that way. When font family is used in shorthand, you can still define a backup font by adding a comma and a second font name. If you're getting confused about all of the different CSS properties that are possible, I want to refer you to a website called w3c.org. So I'm going to take you there. That is if my internet's working. Okay. So this is the World Wide Web Consortium, and it's an international community that develops open standards to ensure the long-term growth of the web. So basically, they try and define guidelines for websites. And you can go on here and do a lot of different things. You can learn a lot of different things. But I wanted to show you specifically the, well, hang on. This doesn't look like the right website. Oh yeah, it's W3 Schools, I think. That's the one I wanted. So this is w3schools.com. So it's learning how to do different codes. So you can actually reference any HTML questions that you have on here about colors, CSS, links, tables. It gives you examples of everything. And so if you're confused about something, this is the website to go to, w3schools.com. So let's say, for example, you forgot some of these font things that we've been talking about, okay? So if you go to font family, CSS fonts, then it talks about all the different options that you have here, okay? And then it gives you examples of what you might want to write. So w3schools.com is very, very helpful. All right, I will see you in lesson 5.